Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today we are going to be looking at solving equations with decimals using adding and subtracting. So I know it sounds like a mouthful already, so you can probably anticipate that it's going to be difficult, but it's actually not. So what I would suggest is that you go back to my integer videos, my videos on solving one-step, two-step, multiple-step equations, but also I should have a video out there on just adding and subtracting decimals, which is your basic type of operations. You're going to see that this is all going to come together today. So there could be some spots where that you can make mistakes, but if you follow the video and take your time, you should be okay. Make sure that you're subscribing, liking, commenting, all that. I hope that you find it useful and enjoy. All right, as I said before we get started with this, I would highly suggest that you go back to our videos on integers, solving one-step equations, and also, if you need to, how to add and subtract decimals, which would be not non-signed numbers, meaning just all positive numbers. All right, that will be very helpful before you start this. Anyway, let's take a look. I'm going to draw my little symbol in here, which you don't have to do. I've talked about this before, just to stay organized. So remember, we want to isolate this x. We want to get it by itself. So we look here, it's plus 4.77. So we want to do the opposite operation. We're going to subtract. And as I said in other videos dealing with decimals, you want to line up the decimals when it comes to adding or subtracting. That's why we're doing these two operations together in this video. We line them up. We see that we're going to be left with x, which is good. 8 minus 7 is 1. Here we have to borrow, making this a 13, making this an 8. So 13 minus 7 is 6. We will bring the decimal down, and then 8 minus 4 is 4. And we have our old school basic decimal subtraction, so we don't have to worry about signs just yet. All right, the next one. All right, we see that we have subtraction here. We want to get rid of that in order to have the p by itself. We'll add this time. All right, we want to do inverse operations. Once again, we'll line up our decimals. We're going to add, but as we know from our integers, we might not necessarily be adding. So signs are different, so that means we're actually going to subtract. So we do 8 minus 4 is 4. This becomes a 10. This becomes a 6. 10 minus 3 is 7. 6 minus 1 is 5. And notice I brought the decimal down and then bring down this 1. So we have 15.74. Please do not stop just there, okay? We notice that these two operations are different, so we subtract it. We take the sign of the bigger number, so our final answer will be negative as well. All right, so what makes these problems a little bit different than the two that we saw before is that our variable is coming in the middle or second here. That's not going to change anything. So this number here is positive. If we don't see a sign in front of it, we assume to be positive. So we're going to get rid of it by subtracting. So that's out. We're going to do that over here. All right, so we're left with e, which is exactly what we want. Now, the signs are the same for both of these. Same signs combine. So 5 and 4 is 9. 7 and 6 is 13. We can bring that decimal down now. All right, 3 and 1 is 4. And then 1 with nothing is 1. And since both of these are negative, it combines to keep it negative at the end. All right, now this one's a little bit tougher, and you'll see when we get to the end why. So once again, there's no sign in front, so we assume it to be positive. So we'll subtract the 16.17. We subtract it here. All right, so when we bring this w down, it's not just w, but it's negative w, which is going to give us some issues at the end. Now, we really can't take 8 from 16 regardless of the sign, so we can flip this. We do have that luxury, commutative property. All right, we know that this is a positive 8.27, so that tells us that we're actually going to subtract. 7 and 7 is 0. This becomes 11. This becomes a 15. And this becomes a 0, so we have 7.90. But remember, this was bigger, so it's negative. But here's the issue. All this right here, that's a negative w. So what you're going to do is, in order to drop that sign, you're actually dividing by negative 1. All right? It's a little more advanced, but what ends up happening is we really are just taking the opposite sign of our final answer there. So it's positive 7.90. Let's take a look at this word problem here. So it says the Pep Boys shop made a profit of $73,239.25 this year. This was $80,123 $8.75 more than the profit from last year. What was the profit last year? So we can see that typically profit means plus. So we're going to put whatever it was last year. We're adding that to what we have from this year. All right, so we can get rid of the dollar signs. This is the profit from this year, so that we know that that's the new total, so that's got to be here. All right, pretty big numbers, that's okay. So what ends up happening is that we're going to subtract this. So already you may have some red lights that go off when we do this. We're subtracting. And as I said in the problem before, that we should probably flip these. So we have 80,123.75, and remember this is a negative, and then we have this here, 73,239 and 25 cents. So we go ahead and subtract because the signs are different. 0, 5, 13. This becomes an 11. All right, so I like to borrow all at once. So 4, and then we have an 8, another 8, a 6, and then we have nothing left because it's a 0. But it's a negative. So what that tells us is that the previous year, they weren't making a profit at all. So this word kind of throws you off. It actually was a loss. All right, so it is okay to get a negative here, especially when we're talking about financial literacy. As you can see, it's not as scary as you think. You want to take your time with all those problems. Make sure that you're lining up the decimals when it comes to adding or subtracting. Next, we'll probably look at solving equations using multiplication and division. Those will go side by side. Definitely a lot of work involved there, unfortunately, especially when it comes to dividing by decimals, as you've seen in other videos. But as always, take your time. You'll be successful if you keep practicing at it. But just rewatch the videos, and I hope you like that part about the financial literacy piece, because there's no denying that there's a real world application to this, okay? Take care.